Heat shimmered off the red canyon walls as Cole Maddox gripped the reins, his horse jerking sideways with a snort that sliced through the stillness. Something was wrong. The trail was empty, the sun unforgiving, yet the animal refused to take another step. Cole tightened his hold. Easy, boy. But the horse's ears pinned forward, locked on a shape half hidden in the narrow strip of shade carved beneath a jutting rock shelf. A body. Cole's hand slid instinctively toward the knife at his belt as he dismounted. Sand crunched under his boots, slow, deliberate steps, while a low wind dragged dust across the ground like a warning. He could hear his heartbeat, steady and heavy in the dead heat. The figure didn't move. He crouched beside her, a woman, young, dirt smeared across her cheek, her dress torn at the hem as though she'd run until she collapsed. Her chest rose in a shallow breath, barely there. One hand was clenched tight around a small silver locket, knuckles white from holding on even in unconsciousness. His shadow fell over her face. Her eyelids twitched. Before Cole could speak, the woman's lashes fluttered open, revealing eyes wide with fear. Fear and something else he couldn't place. She tried to push back, but her strength failed, her body trembling like a newborn fawn. He reached a steadying hand toward her shoulder. "You're safe. Do you hear me?" Her lips parted. At first, only a dry rasp escaped. Then, soft, fragile, like a leaf cracking under a boot, she whispered a single word. "Clara." Cole's body froze so completely that even the wind seemed to hesitate. That name hadn't been spoken in years. Not out here. Not by anyone alive who still walked this valley. He stared at her, unable to breathe. "What did you say?" Her gaze unfocused, as if she were seeing someone else entirely. Someone behind him. Someone long gone. Her fingers tightened on the locket, as if afraid it would vanish from her hand. "Clara," she repeated, a faint echo. And then her eyes rolled back, her body going limp in the dust. Cole caught her before she hit the ground fully, lowering her gently into the meager shade. His throat tightened, a storm pushing through the calm he'd kept buried for years. He brushed a strand of hair from her face and looked again at her hand clutching that locket. Its surface dented, half buried in dirt, glinting like a message from a place he never wanted to revisit. Above them, a buzzard circled low, its shadow drifting across the sand. Cole lifted the woman into his arms. Her skin was burning with heat, her breaths shallow and fading. She weighed almost nothing. The horse stomped anxiously, but Cole steadied it with a touch and laid her across the saddle. The sun beat down. The canyon walls closed in, and all he heard, over and over, was her voice, that impossible whisper dragging the past out of its grave. "Clara." The cabin door slammed shut behind them as Cole kicked it closed, dust trailing in with the dying light. The woman's breathing rattled against his shoulder, her skin fever-hot as he laid her on the cot beside the hearth. Outside, coyotes howled across the canyon, their cries thin and sharp as broken glass. The fire crackled to life as Cole struck a match. Its glow crawled across old photographs nailed crooked on the wall, shadows stretching long over a face he hadn't looked at in years. "Clara." The stranger stirred. Cole knelt beside her, dipping a cloth into a bucket of cool water. Her eyes snapped open, wild for a heartbeat before she recognized him. She pushed herself up on trembling elbows. Where am I?" "My cabin," Cole said quietly. "You collapsed out in Red Valley." Her gaze darted around the room. Firelight, wooden beams, the single window where night pressed against the glass. She swallowed hard, fighting to steady her voice. "They're coming," she whispered. Cole paused, cloth hanging from his fingers. "Who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled the locket from her fist and pressed it to her chest as though holding something sacred. The hinge clicked open. Inside, not a picture, just a torn scrap of paper, edges burned and brittle. Cole leaned closer, breath catching. Words, faded, scorched, written in a hand he knew as well as his own. Clara's hand. The woman watched him carefully. "You knew her." He didn't respond. His jaw clenched tight enough to hurt. "She wrote this," the woman said. My husband, he found it near Red Mesa just before she cut herself off, voice breaking. Before they killed him. The fire popped sharply, a burst of sparks leaping like startled insects. Cole felt the heat rise behind his ribs, familiar and dangerous. She said your wife wasn't killed by accident. The woman's fingers trembled as she offered the burned scrap. Clara left names, directions, warnings. My husband was trying to bring them to you. Cole stared at the paper, the words barely legible, ink smeared, corners charred. But the handwriting, the loop of her letters, was unmistakable. What's your name? He asked. Evelyn, she whispered. He nodded once. Evelyn, what happened to your husband? Her eyes glistened, reflecting the fire like liquid gold. They shot him out near the ridge. He was carrying this. I ran. They followed. Cole rose to his feet slowly, boots creaking on the old floorboards. He moved to the window. The trees outside were black silhouettes. But just beyond them, movement. A faint shift. A shape slipping between the pines. Evelyn's voice trembled. They're here. Cole's fingers tightened on the windowsill as the truth hit him like a hammer to the chest. Clara's death. A burned scrap of her words. Strangers hunting the woman who carried them. Ashes stirred by a single whisper. Outside, the shadows moved closer. The floorboards shook under Evelyn's boots as she stumbled back from the window, her breath quick and shallow. Outside, branches snapped, slow, deliberate steps circling the cabin like wolves testing the dark. Cole didn't move at first. He stood at the window with his shoulders rigid, eyes locked on the shifting silhouettes beyond the tree line. Then, without a word, he reached up and pulled the curtain down in one sharp motion. Evelyn flinched. What do we do? Cole turned, and for the first time, something old flickered behind his eyes, something hard as iron, buried deep but not forgotten. Stay close to the fire, he said. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and knelt beside the floorboards near the hearth. His fingers worked quickly, pulling up a loose plank worn smooth by hidden years. Evelyn watched, hands gripping the locket tight enough to leave marks. The hollow space beneath the floor exhaled a breath of cold air. Inside lay a wooden trunk, dusty, untouched, sealed with a tarnished latch. Cole lifted the lid. Evelyn's breath caught, the fire reflecting off polished metal. 2 pistols rested on a folded coat, their grips dark with age. Beside them, a ranger's badge dull by time. On top of everything, a faded ribbon, edges charred, its color barely visible in the firelight. Evelyn whispered, You're him, aren't you? Cole didn't answer. He removed the ribbon first, lifting it like it was made of glass. For a moment, he simply held it in his palm. Then he tied it around his wrist with slow, steady movements. Evelyn swallowed. Iron Hand Maddox. The name fell into the room like a dropped stone. Cole snapped the trunk shut. I left that behind. But they killed your wife, she said. And my husband. And they'll kill me. Cole stood, fists tightening. His voice came quiet, rough. Doesn't matter who I used to be. A sudden pound hit the cabin wall, once heavy close. Evelyn gasped and stepped back. The fire jumped, shadows jerking across the ceiling. Cole grabbed the pistols from the trunk, the weight familiar as breath. He holstered them at his hips, the leather fitting like it had been waiting. You were a gunslinger, Evelyn said, eyes wide. A legend. Legends get people killed. Another pound, this time against the door. The wood groaned. Evelyn grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Cole moved to the center of the room, every step measured, his face settling into something cold, focused. The quiet around him felt carved from stone. What's in that paper? He said, nodding at the locket. Is why they want you dead. Evelyn opened it with shaking fingers, the scrap trembling in the fire's glow. Clara's handwriting, scorched but clear enough to read names that made Cole's jaw clench. Men he knew, men he once trusted. Outside, the footsteps grew louder. Cole lifted his chin, listening. The man he used to be wasn't gone after all. He was waking. Moonlight cut through the canyon like silver knives as Cole and Evelyn crested the ridge. The camp below glowed faintly, torches flickering against the canvas tents of Briggs' men. Cole's horse shifted beneath him, tense, nostrils flaring, ears forward. Evelyn clung to the saddle behind him, her fingers tight around the locket. "Stay low," he muttered. Shadows stretched, long and trembling, tossed by the flickering flames. The wind carried voices, rough, laughing, unaware of the storm creeping toward them. Cole slowed his horse at the tree lean, eyes scanning every torch, every silhouette. And then he saw them. Sheriff Corbin pacing, Briggs leaning against a post, their men sprawled around campfires, careless and drunk. Their laughter scraped across the rocks. Evelyn whispered, trembling, They know you're here." Cole's jaw tightened. He slid one hand to the pistols at his hip, fingers brushing the worn grips, the familiar weight anchoring him. The ribbon Clara had left fluttered against his wrist, a whisper of fire against the night. A voice from the camp carried up the canyon. "Briggs, your wife screamed your name before the flames took her. Funny how some names stick." Cole's hand stilled, the pistol catching moonlight. The words were venom wrapped in mockery, but the past was no longer a ghost. It was the spark beneath his fingers. Evelyn's voice cut softly through the tension. "Clara, she left everything. The names, the proof, it's all here." Cole's eyes narrowed. Every muscle coiled, the gunslinger inside him breathing again. The night held its breath. The first shot cracked, a clean, sharp report, and men fell scrambling. Cole's draw was a blur. Pistols rose, fingers squeezed. Shadows jerked as bullets met timber, earth, and flesh. Screams echoed against canyon walls, swallowed quickly by the rocks. Briggs bolted, pistol raised, but Cole anticipated each step. He rode faster, boots digging into the stirrups, heart steady as stone. The canyon seemed alive, every echo of his horse's hooves matching the rhythm of vengeance. Cole cornered Briggs at the cliff's edge. Torches behind him cast a halo of hellfire. Briggs' eyes widened, sweat beading under the moonlight. "Cole, wait!" he shouted. Cole didn't move closer. He let the wind carry Clara's ribbon, brushing his wrist like a promise kept. "Clara died saving me," he said, "and you'll answer for every lie, every fire, every death." Briggs stumbled back, teetering on the edge, and the canyon claimed him. The remaining men fled or fell, and dawn bled gold across the valley, softening the harsh lines of the land. Silence followed, heavy and complete. Evelyn slid from the saddle, kneeling beside Cole. She pressed Clara's ribbon into his hand. "She trusted you," she whispered. Cole looked out over Red Valley, the rising sun painting the rocks in fire. The names, the past, the whispers, they weren't just echoes. They were justice moving, slow and certain, through the canyon and into legend. And the storyteller would say, generations later, some names can stop the world, and some men remember them long enough to set it right.